The man sitting in that hospital chair was worth $4.7 billion. He had towers in 7 cities. His name was on buildings. His signature had moved billions of dollars across continents without hesitation. But in that small room, under those pale hospital lights, Adrian Cole was not a billionaire. He was just a man. Broken open. Hands pressed over his face. Shoulders shaking. Weeping the way a person cries when they realize, too late, almost, that they have been wrong about the most important things. On the bed in front of him lay a man with bandaged hands. A street vendor. An immigrant. A man who had never owned anything more valuable than a second-hand cart and a hand-painted wooden sign. The man with the bandaged hands reached out and placed his palm over Adrian's. And held it there. How did 2 men this different end up in the same room, one of them destroyed, one of them still giving? That story starts 60 days earlier. And it starts with a quote that Adrian Cole would spend the rest of his life wishing he could take back. Intro. Before we go further, if you believe that no amount of money can buy what this story is about to show you, take a moment right now to like this video, drop a comment telling us where in the world you are watching from, share this story with someone whose heart needs it today, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that reach inside your chest and remind you what humanity is supposed to feel like. Now, let us go back to the beginning. Sentiment doesn't build cities. I do. Adrian Cole said those words in a magazine interview that ran on the cover of a national business publication 3 years ago. He said them calmly. Without apology. The journalist had asked him about a neighborhood in Philadelphia whose residents had protested against one of his demolitions. Elderly residents. Families. A church that had stood for 80 years. Adrian had not blinked. Sentiment doesn't build cities. I do. At 65, he was the CEO and sole majority shareholder of Cole Group, a real estate empire valued at $4.7 billion. He had started with nothing. His father laid bricks. His mother cleaned the offices of men like the man Adrian would become. He had clawed his way up from that life and somewhere along the way had decided that poverty was a choice. That anyone who stayed poor simply hadn't worked hard enough. He was not a villain in the obvious sense. He wrote checks to charity where cameras could see. He sat on civic boards. He shook the right hands. But in the boardroom, he was merciless. On a sharp October morning, he sat at the head of his long glass table as his deputy chairman, Marcus Webb, presented the final numbers on the Caldwell Flats redevelopment, 17 city blocks on the south side of the city. Families. Small businesses. Community gardens. A neighborhood of working immigrants and longtime residents that had quietly sustained itself for 40 years. To Adrian, it was opportunity. Phase 1 demolition in 60 days, Marcus said. Final signature pending. An attorney at the table cleared his throat. Sir, a coalition of residents has submitted a formal request for a town hall. There are advocacy groups organizing. The optics. Decline, Adrian said, without looking up from his folder. Sir. These people have been sitting on the most valuable underdeveloped land in this city for decades. He closed the folder. They have had 40 years to build something. They didn't. We will. He looked around the table. Sentiment doesn't build cities. I do. The room went quiet. That evening, forwarded to his private email, was a quote from a Caldwell Flats street vendor who had spoken to a local journalist. His name was Emeka Osei. He had said, I don't know who this Mr. Cole is. But maybe if he came and sat at our table, he would understand what he is taking. Adrian read it twice. Something moved in him. Not guilt, not yet. More like a test instinct. The same instinct that had made him walk properties before buying them for decades. Never trust a report. See it yourself. He picked up the phone. Cancel my Thursday and Friday. He arrived on Caldwell Avenue at 6:15 in the morning. Worn jeans. A faded grey jacket. Old boots. He had left his phone, his watch, and his name behind. He had been on the block for less than 90 seconds when he saw the cart. Orange vest. Wide smile. A man in his early 40s with calloused hands arranging plantains and peppers with the precision of someone who had done this every day for years. A handwritten sign, today's special, jollof plus fried chicken. $7. God bless you. Beside the cash box sat a small glass jar. A handwritten label, neighbor fund, take if you need, give if you can. That was Emeka Osei. Adrian found a bench across the street and watched. Within the first 20 minutes, he saw Emeka slip a free meat pie into a small girl's bag when her mother wasn't looking. He saw him drop coins from his own pocket into the neighbor fund. He saw him greet every customer by name, not with the performed warmth of a man trained in customer service, but with the simple pleasure of someone who genuinely liked people. Adrian told himself it was performance. A show for the street. Then, at 6:30, a boy of about 9 came running to the cart, breathless, holding out a crumpled dollar bill. He was pointing back up the street. Emeka listened, looked, then quietly opened his cart drawer and handed the boy a full bag of groceries, peppers, tomatoes, a wrapped bundle of plantains. He waved off the dollar bill. The boy ran back. No cameras. No audience. No one watching except one man in a faded jacket on a bench across the street, who was trying very hard to feel nothing. By mid-morning, Adrian had not eaten. He was sitting on a concrete planter near the cart when the bench dipped beside him and a container of jollof rice appeared in front of him. My wife packs for an army, Emeka said pleasantly, settling in. Every morning since 2012 I have told her, Abina, I only have one stomach. Every morning she sends me with food for 3 people. He opened his own container. Eat. You look like a man deciding whether asking for help is beneath him. Adrian ate. They talked for nearly an hour. Emeka talked, about Ghana, about arriving with 1 suitcase and no contacts, about washing dishes in a restaurant kitchen until his hands cracked in the winter cold. About his daughter Adwoa, now 11, who corrected his grammar and announced last year that she would become an architect. She wants to design buildings, Emeka said, smiling. I told her, design buildings that remember the people inside them. Not just the people looking at them from outside. Adrian kept his expression neutral. You've heard about the redevelopment, he asked carefully. Emeka's face shifted, not into fear, but into something heavy and quiet. Coal Group, he said. Yes. He looked down at his food. Phase 1 is our block. My cart license renewal was $400 last month. I would not have paid it if I had known. He shook his head. But you know what I told my wife? I said, Abina, maybe the man destroying us has never sat at our table. Maybe if he had looked us in the eye, eaten our food, he would see us differently. He looked up and met Adrian's gaze directly. Do you think a man like that could change? He asked. Not bitterly. Not rhetorically. Genuinely. As if he truly wanted to know. Adrian looked away toward the street. I don't know, he said quietly. It was the most honest thing he had said in years. That evening, Emeka invited the quiet stranger back to his home for dinner. Abina set an extra plate without being asked, the way a woman does when hospitality is not an effort but a reflex. Adwoa sat across from Adrian and studied him with the frank, unguarded gaze of a child who has not yet learned to pretend. Halfway through the meal, she put down her fork and said, Are you from around here? No, Adrian said. Where do you live? Further north. She considered this. Then, Daddy, why do rich people hate our street? The table went quiet. Emeka looked at his daughter gently. Adwoa. No, I want to know, she said, not unkindly. Simply. The way children ask things that adults have agreed never to say aloud. At school they said some billionaire is going to knock everything down. They said he has never even been here. They said he thinks we are poor because we are lazy. She looked at her father. "We are not lazy, Daddy." "No," Emeka said softly. "We are not." "Then why?" Emeka reached across and covered her hand with his. "Some people," he said, "have never been hungry enough to understand why others share their food. They have never needed enough to know what it costs someone to give." He glanced briefly at Adrian. "But people can learn. If they are willing." Adrian stared at his plate. He thought of the magazine cover. The quote printed in bold beneath his photograph. "Sentiment doesn't build cities. I do." He could not finish his food. The next morning, a city code enforcement officer arrived at Emeka's cart. Young. Uniformed. Clipboard in hand. Moving with the slow deliberateness of a man who enjoyed his small authority. Adrian was 20 feet away, pretending to read a discarded newspaper. The officer inspected the cart with theatrical thoroughness. He measured its distance from the curb. He lifted the warming tray lid. He checked the permit. "Temperature non-compliance," he said flatly. "I'm issuing a citation." Emeka frowned. "Sir, I replaced this tray 3 months ago. I have the receipt. The citation has been issued. Please. Let me show you the documentation. You can contest it at the licensing office." He closed his clipboard. He was already walking away. 2 customers who had been waiting drifted off, uncomfortable. Emeka stood very still. He reached under the cart. Pulled out a worn folder of laminated documents. Found the receipt. Looked at it. Put it back. He straightened his vest. He said to the next approaching customer, "Sorry for the wait. The puff-puff is fresh. What can I get you?" Adrian watched all of it. And felt something cold and specific settle in his stomach. He knew what compliance sweeps were. He had signed off on them before, quietly, as part of pre-demolition preparation. Designed to make businesses technically non-compliant. Easier to shut down. A legal mechanism so routine he had never once stopped to picture the man standing behind the cart, pulling out his folder, putting it away. He was picturing it now. On the 3rd morning, the pharmacy 2 blocks from Emeka's home ran out of Adwoa's respiratory medication. It was not a coincidence, though no one in Caldwell Flats knew that yet. Cole Group's legal team had flagged all Caldwell commercial addresses as non-renewal territories in the city's supplier network. An administrative decision. 3 sentences of paperwork. The distributor had quietly stopped fulfilling deliveries to Caldwell pharmacies months ago. Paperwork has consequences. Abina came back empty-handed. Adrian was nearby when Emeka counted his morning earnings on the front step. He watched him pull out a separate, carefully folded roll of bills from his vest pocket. Savings. Set aside deliberately. The pharmacy on Hartman Street, Abina said quietly. "I know." Emeka pressed the money into her hands. "Take a cab. Don't walk." "Emeka, that was for the cart repair." "The cart can wait." He looked at her steadily. "She cannot." When Abina had gone, Emeka sat down on the step. He rubbed his face with both hands. And for the first time since Adrian had been watching him, the wide smile was completely gone. In its place was the exhaustion of a man who had been giving from an almost empty cup for a very long time and was choosing to keep giving anyway. Adrian sat beside him. They were quiet for a while. Then Emeka looked up at the pale morning sky and said, "My father told me, a river that keeps flowing never runs dry. If you hold everything in, you become a swamp." He exhaled slowly. "I never want to be a swamp." Adrian said nothing. He sat with those words for a long time. That night, alone in the motel room, he spread the Caldwell Flats demolition folder across the bed. Aerial photographs. Projected timelines. Phase 1 addresses. The Osei home was circled in red. He stared at it for a long time. Then he picked up his phone and called Marcus. I want to explore alternatives to the demolition, he said. The silence that followed was 3 full seconds long. Adrian, Marcus said carefully. The board votes in 11 days. We have $340 million in pre-construction contracts already committed. If you pull back. I said explore alternatives. The board won't accept it. Hargrove will invoke the shareholder clause. They have grounds to remove you. Let me worry about Hargrove. He hung up. He told himself he had time. That he would find a solution that worked for everyone. That he was still in control. He was telling himself that when his phone rang 23 days later and Marcus said, "There's been a fire." Adrian read the address. He was in his car before Marcus could speak another word. The fire had started from a faulty electrical panel on the upper floor of a row house on the 1100 block of Caldwell Avenue. Residents of that block had filed 3 maintenance reports in the past 2 years. Each one had been logged. Each one had been deprioritized because Caldwell Flats was flagged in the city maintenance system as a pending redevelopment zone. Non-essential repairs suspended until further notice. That decision had been made possible by a single line in Cole Group's pre-demolition agreement with the city. His line. His agreement. He understood this completely and precisely 6 minutes into the drive, sitting in the back of his car, reading Marcus's follow-up message on his phone. He put the phone face down on the seat. He sat with what he had just understood. The Osei home had taken the worst of it. Smoke had gutted the upper floor. Adwoa's bedroom window was blown out. Emeka had gotten Adwoa out first. Then Abina. Then he had gone back inside. For her medication. For the small wooden box her grandfather had carved in Ghana when Adwoa was born. For the laminated folder, permits, receipts, 9 years of a man's working life proved on paper. His hands had been burned pulling that folder from a burning shelf. When Adrian arrived, Abina and Adwoa stood on the sidewalk wrapped in blankets that neighbors had carried out from their own homes. Miss Opaline had her arm around Abina without speaking. Kwame and Tobias were there. The old men from the Jamaican bakery were there. The entire block had come out, not to watch, but to surround. Adrian stood at the edge of that gathering. He had built towers that reshaped skylines. He had never seen anything as structurally solid as what he was looking at right now. He sat in the waiting room for 3 hours. When they finally let him in, he walked down a pale corridor and stopped in the doorway of a small room where Emeka Osei lay propped against pillows, both hands wrapped in white bandages, his face worn down to its bones with exhaustion. When Emeka saw him, recognition moved slowly across his face. Then something more complicated. "The quiet man from the diner," he said. Adrian stepped inside. Sat in the chair beside the bed. "My name is not Ul," he said. Emeka waited. "My name is Adrian Cole." The room went completely still. Emeka looked at him for a long time. He did not rage. He did not recoil. He looked at Adrian the way he looked at everything, with unhurried, deliberate attention. As if reading something written in small, difficult print. "How long?" he asked quietly. "For days in Caldwell. But I've known about your neighborhood for months." Adrian did not look away. "Your block was phase 1. Your family was going to receive demolition notices in 5 weeks. Emeka closed his eyes briefly. "The citation officer," he said slowly. "The pharmacy. The maintenance reports." No one answered. He opened his eyes. "The fire. The maintenance suspension was enabled by our pre-demolition agreement with the city," Adrian said. "I signed that agreement." The silence between them was enormous. "You fed me," Adrian said. His voice was stripped now, all the boardroom polish gone. "You gave your daughter's medicine money to a stranger without being asked. You ran into a burning building with your bare hands to save documents that proved you had a right to exist in that city." He paused. "And I was the one who made that city question whether you did." Emeka looked at his bandaged hands. A long moment passed. Then, what will you do with what you have seen, Mr. Cole? The demolition is withdrawn, Adrian said. I'm going to the board on Monday to propose a community renewal plan. Affordable housing renovation. Infrastructure investment across all 17 blocks. Maintenance restoration. A community development fund. He paused. The board may remove me. My deputy chairman has already prepared the paperwork. Emeka looked at him steadily. And you are willing to lose your company? Adrian thought about the magazine cover. The quote in bold. The 40 years of buildings. The skyline with his name written into it. I built a lot of things, he said quietly. I never once built anything that mattered as much as what you built on Caldwell Avenue. He looked at the bandaged hands. So yes. A long silence. Then Emeka said, I don't want your money, Mr. Cole. Adrian looked up. And I don't want you to save me. Emeka's voice was quiet. Absolute. I want you to save the people you never bothered to see. Miss Opaline. Kwame and Tobias. The woman at the salon who has been there 22 years. The old men at the bakery who have nowhere else in this world to go. He held Adrian's gaze. If your conscience finally needs a reason to do what is right, let it be them. Not me. Adrian pressed both hands over his face. He sat very still. And then, for the first time since he was a young man standing at his father's graveside, he wept. Not quietly. Not with the controlled grief of a man accustomed to composure. His shoulders shook. He bent forward. He cried for the citation officer and the maintenance reports and the $400 cart license renewed by a man who had no idea what was coming. He cried for Adwoa asking her father why rich people hated their street. He cried for Abina handing over medicine money without complaint. He cried for the fire and the folder and the bandaged hands. He cried for 40 years of not seeing. Emeka did not speak. He reached out one bandaged hand and placed it over Adrian's. And held it there. Quietly. The way a man holds a door open for someone, not asking anything in return. Just holding it. Monday morning. Cole Group boardroom. Adrian walked in and stood at the head of the table. He did not sit. The Caldwell Flats redevelopment is withdrawn, he said. Effective immediately. I am proposing a community renewal plan, affordable housing renovation across all 17 blocks, an $80 million community development fund, and full infrastructure investment. The room exploded. Gerald Hargrove, third largest shareholder, a man who had been waiting a long time for this moment, spoke over the noise. You are in material breach of your fiduciary duty. I am invoking the shareholder clause. He slid a document down the table toward Adrian. 12 copies. Pre-prepared. He had known. He had been ready. Adrian looked at the document. Then he looked at Marcus Webb, his deputy chairman of 14 years. The man he had trusted above everyone else in that room. Marcus did not meet his eyes. Marcus drafted the removal paperwork, Hargrove said, with no particular pleasure. Just fact. The vote will proceed. Adrian looked at Marcus for a long moment. Marcus stared at the table. Adrian nodded slowly. He reached into his jacket and placed a single photograph on the table. Emeka at his cart. Orange vest. The neighbor fun jar. The handwritten sign. This man fed me when I had nothing, Adrian said quietly. He gave his daughter's medicine money to a stranger. He ran into a burning building, a fire caused by our maintenance suspension, to save the documents that proved he belonged in his own home. He looked around the room. I signed the agreement that caused that fire. That is on me. I am not doing it again. Hargrove called the vote. 7-5. Adrian Cole was removed as CEO of Cole Group on a Tuesday morning in October. He walked out of the building with his personal shares, his name, and, for the first time in 40 years, something he did not have a word for yet. He would find the word later. It was peace. He called his personal attorney from the lobby. Set up a non-profit. Community development. Caldwell Flats. All 17 blocks. I'll fund it personally. The Caldwell Flats Community Renewal Project broke ground 11 months later. Emeka's block was restored first. The Osei home, repaired, repainted, the handwritten wooden sign rehung above the door, looked out over a Caldwell Avenue that was, for the first time in years, receiving the maintenance it had always deserved. Miss Opaline's Community Learning Center opened in the spring. Kwame and Tobias's garden became a permanent city green space. Adwoa, now 12, told her father she had changed her mind. She didn't want to be an architect anymore. She wanted to build communities. At the groundbreaking ceremony, Emeka stood at the podium. He looked out at the crowd, neighbors, journalists, city officials, and one man in a grey jacket sitting quietly in the back row, far from any camera. Emeka smiled. "A man came to our street to prove we were worth nothing," he said. Instead, he found something he had lost a long time ago himself. He paused. I did not save him. He saved himself. All I did was share my lunch. In the back row, Adrian Cole looked down. He came to erase Caldwell Flats from the map. Instead, Caldwell Flats erased the blindness from his heart. If this story reached inside you, if it reminded you that the most powerful thing one human being can offer another is simply to be seen, please like this video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Subscribe for more stories that remind us what it means to be human. And before you go, if you believe that a man who has finally seen the truth can never pretend to be blind again, drop the words "I see you" in the comments below. Because sometimes, that is all it takes.